Football isn't necessarily around the corner, but free agency is going to start to pick up and then wrap up. As soon as we know it, we'll see preseason, training camp, and then, by September, we'll start seeing some games. And this is a new season. This is coming off of an incredibly difficult year for every team. The pandemic hit a lot of players. A lot of people dropped out. A lot of people didn't play. There were a good amount of injuries. Honestly, this season had more injuries than we've seen in a long time. Just in week one alone, there was Nick Bosa for the 49ers. There was Saquon Barkley. There was J.J. Watt. There were players all around the league just getting ripped apart. And I think a little bit of it has to do with the fact that they'd been, unable to go to training facilities and kind of work out with the team because of COVID. Now they've had a good amount of time to acclimate to things. COVID in general is starting to die down from a mandate and restriction viewpoint, and it looks like teams can start to get back on track. There's a lot of teams like the 49ers or like the Rams who got hit pretty hard by injuries or made a big move in the offseason, and with that said, those teams have kind of been forgotten about, and that's at least what I've picked up on. So today I'm going to sit down and talk about some of the biggest storylines in the NFL, just kind of, talk my way through this next season and what I'm excited for in general. So without further ado, let's get into the video. So to start my list off, the Tennessee Titans, they are looking to improve. Obviously, every team wants to do that, but when you make a move like trade for Julio or rework contracts, or, they just signed Derrick Henry to a huge deal last season, and he had one of the best seasons ever as a running back, especially for the Tennessee Titans. So it's going to be weird. I'm really concerned about the Tennessee Titans defense. Jayon Brown, he got injured last season, broke his arm. They also have to extend him. Right now, their leading linebacker is Rashaan Evans, who is a good linebacker, but he's not the guy you want at the top, calling all the plays and he can be the energy guy. He can make big hits, but he's not a secondary player. He's the guy that's going to come in and deliver a big hit. He's a good tackling linebacker, but he is not the guy that I would want on my team as like a Demario Davis kind of role or Luke Kuechly, that kind of idea. So I don't think he has that in him. We saw him play last season, even in the playoffs, with that role, and I did not think he did a very good job. Coverage for the Titans was down. Their secondary has taken a big hit as well. Jonathan Joseph retired. Dory Jackson probably won't be with the team. They didn't pick up his fifth-year option. So with that said, their defense is a little worrying. They still have, Jeffrey Simmons, who has developed into one of the best tackles in the NFL. But other than him, there isn't a ton on the line that's going to get it done. So with that said, they did draft Caleb Farley in the draft, and it looks like they could start to pick up things from there. But I'm a little concerned with how this defense is panning out. The offense, on the other hand, is looking great. Ryan Tannehill, he's exceeded all expectations since being traded for. Derrick Henry, Julio Jones, A.J. Brown. They've got Josh Reynolds, who I think is a pretty underrated player, as he was sitting behind Robert Woods and Cooper Kupp in Los Angeles with the Rams. So he's there. They've got one of the best receiving corps in the NFL. Great running back, top 3 in the NFL. Great passing system. Derek runs the offense as a running back just because everything runs through him. Tannehill is a great game manager. That is not a negative part of him. He is a great player, but he is also a great game manager, if you know what I'm saying. So that's one team I'm really excited about. Another team I'm really excited about are the Arizona Cardinals. The Cardinals are they had a little bit of a disappointing season. And I say that because expectations were set high when they got DeAndre Hopkins. And when Chandler Jones broke out, not last season, but 2 seasons ago, as one of the best pass rushers in the NFL. Plus, this year, they now have J.J. Watt, who is a perennial Defensive Player of the Year candidate when he's healthy. He is one of the best of all time. He will be in the Hall of Fame one day. And with that said, this defense looks good. Budda Baker improved a lot this last season. Their draft picks from last season were not ideal. Isaiah Simmons has not panned out, but he had 1 year and things could improve this season. I did not see a lot of good football from him, but with that said, I think that he can definitely improve. I'm not going to write him off after one bad year, especially a year like last year. So the Cardinals have a lot of good roster spots, and if you look at the team just personnel-wise, you look at it and you go, man, they could be a contender. Kyler Murray played fantastic football in his second season. Was incredible to start the season, got a little banged up towards the end, did not run nearly as much, and that hurt his team by a lot. He even got injured in the final game of the season, and they ended up losing, which put them out of the playoffs. They were still within sniffing distance of the playoffs, and the Cardinals have not been good since 2015 when they had Carson Palmer, David Johnson. So a lot of questions there, but the biggest question in general for the Cardinals is Cliff Kingsbury. Can he get it done? I did not see what I wanted to see last year. He made really weird, bad decisions at the end of games. I thought that he relied a little bit too much on Kyler's legs, and then when Kyler started to get banged up and getting a little scared of running, Cliff didn't have any sort of reaction to that. He didn't change the game flow. He just kind of allowed the plays to continue to rely on Kyler's legs. Plus, I think that O-line for the Cardinals did not do Kyler any justice. I think it was the final play of their season. If they had scored, I think it would have gone to overtime. A scenario like that. Kyler Murray had less than a second to get the ball off. It was the worst defense I've ever seen played in a situation like that, especially when it was a three-man rush. It was a three-man rush because they had to guard deep, and Kyler just got pancaked. It was horrible. It was so bad. So Cardinals have had that problem for a couple years now. Hopefully that their draft picks can fix that, but only time will tell. Another couple teams that I want to talk about, 49ers, they're a sleeper team for me. A lot of people are going to sleep on them. They got the third overall pick, drafted a new quarterback. There's still questions in the air what's going to happen with him. Is Jimmy going to be there? Is Trey going to come out and start? I would expect Jimmy Garoppolo plays most, if not all, of the season barring injury, and they will just judge it based off that. This could be a little bit like the Tyrod Taylor, Justin Herbert season last year, except Jimmy Garoppolo is a little better than Tyrod Taylor. That is another team that I think can exceed all expectations, especially from what happened last year. Honestly, a lot of their players got injured, but they all got a full season off to recoup and recover. So there's that. Then there's the Rams and the Lions. And I say those two teams at once because they had one of the biggest trades, if not the biggest trade of the offseason, and that is the Matthew Stafford, Jared Goff trade. And it kind of just reworked the future for both these teams. Obviously, the Lions traded Matthew Stafford away, and they got Jared Goff and 3 first-round draft picks, something crazy. Obviously, they took on Jared's horrible contract and gave away one of the best quarterback in Lions history, Matthew Stafford, just in order to establish a future for themselves through the draft. The Rams, on the other hand, have one of, if not the best defense in the NFL. They have the best tackle in the NFL and the best corner in the NFL. Their entire defense is solid from every single aspect. Plus, they now have Matthew Stafford, a fantastic, very underrated quarterback for them. And, Cooper Kupp is a little injury prone. He's still great. Robert Woods is still a good wide receiver. They don't have a blockbuster receiving core by any means, but Matthew Stafford has never had that, and he's still produced. Plus, he's going to have a good O-line and a great defense to match that. This Rams team is a contender. This team is more of a contender than the 49ers or than the Cardinals. I have very high expectations for the Los Angeles Rams, if you can't tell already. So switch on to the other side of that trade. The Detroit Lions got Jared Goff, a couple first-round draft picks. Overall, it was a pretty fair trade. We're going to have to see how long Matthew Stafford can stay in Pro Bowl playing condition. He is getting older. He was drafted in 2011. Don't have too high expectations for the Lions. They drafted a couple good pieces, but nothing crazy. I think everybody has the same outlook on the Lions. This is a rebuilding team, and it's time for them to start to see who they should keep and start to, kind of stash players away just to look at the future, especially from a quarterback perspective, because Jared Goff, he's okay. I think he can be a decent quarterback, but his contract is absolutely atrocious, and it's going to be difficult for them to move on from him, especially when you're paying him that much money. So they're going to have to look through the draft for a quarterback if Jared doesn't outperform what is necessary for this team. And they were already one of the worst teams in the NFL with Matthew Stafford. Now they're without him, and it's going to be a lot of hard work for them to get back into a, good quarterback situation. Another really big storyline I'm excited for this season is the second-year quarterbacks. I thought there were 4 great quarterbacks from this year's draft that can become Pro Bowl, All-Pro players if they put the pedal to the metal, especially for Tua Tagovailoa. And I know I probably butchered his last name. I always do. But Tua just got Jalen Waddle. He's got a couple big pieces in Miami, plus a fantastic defense and a great head coach. There is a video on the channel about the Miami Dolphins. Peyton talked about them and just kind of talked about how they're so underrated and how good their defense had been last season and how good their coach was. I think that they've made fantastic moves throughout the entire offseason. They traded away the 3rd overall pick, still ended up with the 6th overall pick. They dealed their way into the top 10 of the draft, even though they traded away the 3rd overall pick. General management was fantastic. I was really happy with what they did. It all comes down to what Tua can do. Tua needs to make some big plays. And I know that you say that for any quarterback. They need to make plays. They need to make big plays. But it is very true. Tua has this one style where he just kind of tosses it 5 yards to Mike Gesicki or Devontae Parker and tells them to run. And that might work in some instances. You're not going to win games in the 4th quarter with that mentality. And we saw it this last year. Tua couldn't get it done. They put in Ryan Fitzpatrick. Ryan Fitzpatrick made big plays, and they won the game against the Oakland Raiders. That was a very exciting Thursday night football game. Tua didn't do well in that game at all on a national stage. He kind of just flubbed around until he was pulled. I'm the most worried about Tua going into the future. That doesn't necessarily mean I think he's going to suck or I think that he won't pan out to be a great player. I just have a lot of concerns regarding his inability to make plays and, honestly, his lack of a presence on the football field. I don't see a ton from Tua that leads me to believe he can be a great player. There are a few things that stick out to me that he's great at. He's great at making a good safe decision. He doesn't throw too many interceptions. He's a good football IQ guy, but he plays it a little too safe, and I think that the play calling needs to be a little bit more advanced for him this season, especially with Jalen Waddle, a new receiver to throw to. And I'm expecting a big bump in production from Tua, especially after a full offseason with NFL trainers and everything. So, my expectations are, I wouldn't even say it's my expectations that are high. It's just that in order to make a big enough leap in year 2, he's going to have to take a very big step up compared to Justin Herbert, who just had a historic season, threw the most touchdowns as a rookie in NFL history. Joe Burrow was injured, but before that played fantastic, and a lot of it had to do with the team around him. I don't think that the team around Tua played bad. I actually think they were good, especially compared to the expectations that were set. But I don't think that he gave enough to the team to warrant a playoff berth. And they got close, and I think that they will be closer this season, especially after adding Jalen Waddle and a couple other big picks in the draft. So, with that said, obviously I can't go over every team in one video. This video might have a part 2 just because I want to go through a lot of the teams. There are a few teams that I didn't mention here, like the Panthers with Sam Darnold, or the Cowboys getting Dak back, or the New York Giants, who Daniel Jones is playing pretty decent. They were a pretty underrated team last season. Plus, they lost a top 5 running back in the league, Saquon Barkley. So, a lot more to speak on in the NFL. I just kind of wanted to share some of my favorite stories or my favorite storylines, and just some of the things I'm looking forward to. So I'm always super into football. It's my favorite sport. The NFL gets me going every year, and with that said, I think I'm gonna wrap it up here. So thank you so much for watching. We will catch you next time on AP Sports. Please do like and subscribe if you enjoy. Helps a ton. Comment if you have any, problems with what I've said or anything to add. So thank you. We'll catch you next time. Peace.